I'm proud of both of you.
I'm proud of you.
I'm proud of all of us.
Oh, why?
Because
I was gonna give my reason.
Go ahead, give your reason.
Because you're both angels, and it's been 2 full episodes. It's been 2 full weeks since a spill on the couch.
We haven't spilled anything.
Why do you have to call me out like that? Fuck?
He's trying to praise you.
I was literally
trying to say
praise
a nice
him.
thing. Why am I so bad at being good? My kitties now fast asleep. I can pour myself a glass. But too many shows on Netflix are trash. It makes me wanna pass. I can't figure out what to watch. What am I supposed to do? Let's get drunk and rewatch cartoons when we were little dudes. Whiskey-lodian. Hey, is this part 3?
This is part 3.
This is part 3.
Yes. We were just so worried. We want to make sure we gave season 3 the length it needed. And so we are still sharing the same hibiscus Kentucky Mule. And we still have the ginger lime Kentucky Mule bonbon.
Yep.
Still my favorite.
So good.
I'm so glad you guys love that.
Yeah.
Of course we do. You don't be surprised.
Yeah, this is going to be...
So
yeah.
I'm not surprised you like it. I'm surprised that it was your favorite.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
What would you have thought would be the favorite?
Well, I'm actually not surprised that it was your favorite because you haven't been able to try these other ones. We need to hang out
Fair.
more. But Sean, like you've had a plethora of
That's
different
fair.
bonbons. I've had.
I'm actually a little surprised too. I don't know what it is. I think it's the two together. Mm-hmm. It's my favorite combination.
Okay.
I think they complement each other the best out of anything. Even though I think separately, I would probably argue that some of the others were like anything chai though. Mm-hmm. Chai has my heart. Thai has my
dick.
So speaking of dick
paused.
blood
He
bending,
paused. He can't even say anything because he knows it's true.
It's so good. I wasn't ready. Oh,
the timing was
are
exceptional.
we gonna make it through this one?
I hope so.
This has been a true marathon. We've been drinking the same drink for 3 weeks.
No, we've had 2 different drinks. What are you talking about?
Oh, see?
He-
See the
See what?
see the error in my judgment?
See how much I've had to drink? I can't recall.
I can't. Yeah, I'm seeing an italicized
On a scale of-
italics.
On a scale of 1 to
it is Comic
done.
Sans merged with papyrus in italics.
And it's just crazy how much it's happening.
Yeah, so many hamsters.
So I've known these two for a very long time, and I don't even think they're making sense right now. So Nickelodeon listeners,
We call them Lodian. We call them Lodians.
Yeah, like if you're not tracking either, I don't know how we went from font script to, I don't understand
We will
that.
always go from font to fowls. Sea fowls. Speaking of sea fowls, on today's episode,
Yes, on today's we're covering season 3 of Avatar: Last Airbender, focusing on the arc of Katara. And like episode 2 and season 2, which cover like really heavy episodes, we're gonna get into some fucking creepy bullshit.
as we
real creepy.
tend to do.
As we tend to do.
Yeah, if you're not tiptoeing in creepy bullshit, what are you doing? Creepy bullshit.
You're
How
not
have you
living your
not
life.
sponsored us yet?
So this episode, we're starting off with the Puppet Master. This is the bloodbending episode, and I had to share this because I feel like I don't know if I did share this, but it needs to be shared.
You did.
I'm going to share it again.
We'll do it again.
So Sean was watching the series for the first time a couple years back, and I just get this random text, and it's all bold, capitalized, and Sean's like, bloodbending, what the fuck?
It was like someone on Nextdoor had complained about fireworks or gunshots. Mm-hmm. All caps, just a Karen of a neighbor. That was me. I was the Karen.
You were the
And
Karen.
I bloodbended straight into your
I don't
dick.
know if responding to bloodbending is a Karen thing. I think it's
It was the text. It was
fair.
the way it was
Okay.
written.
It was the way it's written.
He
Okay,
wrote it
okay.
like
I wrote
a
it in all.
Karen.
Yeah,
Got
it
it.
was
Got it.
fireworks or bloodbending.
Right. Yeah. No.
Post.
So I'll say, and by the way, to listeners, in case you didn't listen to the last couple of episodes, I'm Leia, a psychologist.
I didn't do that.
Yeah. Also, go backwards.
friend.
Don't start here. Go. You don't have to rewind.
Correct.
You can scroll up 2 inches and hit the episode whatever.
Yeah.
The first one.
Episode 5 and
Yep.
episode 6
And then
now
7.
This is episode 7.
This is not Star
still
Wars
going.
prequel. Oh, it has
Almost
been.
at its film.
It has been 2 minutes since this. This is You're entitled to listen in any order you want,
So what I want to say is,
but don't. But don't do it.
But do it.
You wanted to
Do
say
it,
something
Leia.
though.
Discuss what you want to discuss.
thank you, man.
Discuss.
I appreciate you.
You don't need a
Discuss?
man to tell you
This
what
isn't
you
a
can do
man
and not
thing.
do.
What I was going to say is
Before you were really interrupted.
correct,
By
but I'm
you.
going to keep using my voice. Because I have one. Okay, so anyways, I will say this, like the power at the beginning. I'm watching Avatar. What are we even talking about? I'm tired.
We're back
Anyway,
to Avatar.
Avatar.
Yeah, no, I know. Anyways,
The Last Airbender.
But I'll say when I was first introduced to it, initially I thought that waterbending was a little bit lame. I'm not gonna lie, because I was like, oh wow, you're limited to having to be near a water source, having a water source. What if you don't? Have it, which I think speaks to my own limited perspective of the power and how much like we are connected as entities to water. And so season 3 and where we're going gets so much darker and so much more more in depth than I ever expected waterbending to be able to get as a power. So this one gets real trippy for me.
It
too.
becomes
yeah.
a conversation about resourcefulness.
Yeah.
And what exists. I mean, within you, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
not even metaphorically speaking. It's how do these elements truly interact with you, and where can you find them
Totally.
in your maybe darkest moments?
No, but I definitely had a what the fuck too. I
Sure.
just didn't think to text anyone, which
No,
I'm
you-
sad I didn't connect in that way.
Your next door app was faulty that day.
Yeah,
I understand.
Right. Mhm. Yeah. So, keep
So
going.
where we are in this story right now in season 3, they have lost the Battle of Ba Sing Se. So they have fled. They are now hiding in plain sight in the Fire Nation. So they're disguised as firebenders or Fire Nation people. And Katara has had experience. So you're talking about how like waterbending, you feel like it's very limited, but they've had it to where they have seen swamp benders where they're bending the water in plants to control that. We've seen Katara, who is trapped, who used the sweat off her brow to waterbend and break herself free out
We've
of a
seen
prison.
breadcrumbs of bending.
Yes.
Yes.
So what
But
this
then shit gets crazy.
it gets so crazy. So they are now in this little village in the Fire Nation, and they're kind of camping out, and they're telling ghost stories, surprisingly. And Katara starts going on about this story about her mother and how she had this friend who disappeared one day, but then she just started, I'm so cold. I can't get warm. And of course, everyone's freaking the fuck out.
I love that cutaway right there.
Yes, everyone's freaking the fuck out. And then
They're
even
like,
Toph.
I think they're like huddled together.
Yes.
Right.
And then even Toph's like, there are people screaming under the mountain.
Right. And yes.
We'll get there.
We'll
but
get
that
there.
is I hate that sentence. Leia did a paragraph in episode 1. Didn't love it. That one, there are people screaming under the mountain.
Yes.
Don't say that to anyone when the moon goes down.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And then suddenly, silence.
Yeah.
And that is when the gang is introduced to Hama. Hama then comes in and is like, what are y'all doing out here in the woods? It's not safe.
It's so predatory the way that
So
Hama
comforting.
comes in. Like, right? Like, I'm just like, okay, keep going.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't like that. You don't want anyone to come to your tent. Well, that
Yeah.
not supposed to be there. But then say that shit?
Right.
It isn't safe here? Are you the reason?
Spoiler alert. Yes.
Yes. So yes, it is the reason. I don't know if that's the wisest thing to say to them. I was like, are you the reason why? Like,
Hello, children. Are you feeling safe? Hope you brought your kindling.
But what master manipulation, right? Because inviting them back into the inn where there's this perception of safety. Keep going, Ty. I don't want to spoil it. But yeah.
So at that point, they get invited to the inn, and then they're very much like, this woman's creepy as fuck. Like, everyone's like, no, this is creepy as fuck. And so they start, like, investigating. She goes out shopping, and they hear, like, everyone, as they're shopping, too, of, like, oh, no, we can't go out. It's the full moon. Mm-hmm. People have been coming missing. It's like, no, I can't lose another employee. Which, okay, capitalism, thanks. But...
And you're like, is a werewolf about to be introduced?
Right.
Yeah.
And at least at this point, too, we've been introduced to the idea of lunar activity, interaction with water. Nothing new there, but it at least gives you a little bit of context. You're like, okay.
Well, what's interesting is that... Yeah, Aang thinks that there's like a spirit that they've offended or that's doing this.
Right.
Because they've had that experience.
They have. Of course they have.
So... Sokka is very suspicious of Hama, and then starts like trying to sneak in into like these rooms that are locked. Turns out she's kept stuff from the Southern Water Tribe, and like, what the fuck is this? She goes, oh, well, that was a comb that I had as a little girl when I lived in the Southern Water Tribe. And immediately, Katara and Sokka, they're both like, oh, you're from the Southern Water Tribe? Immediately just bond and connect. And I think that speaks to the power of tribalism. Like, I feel like just seeing, like, if we were as big of fans of Sean's, like, sports ball team, I feel like he would like us more.
Leia went to the school that I cheer for, and somehow
So did my
I am
wife.
the bigger fan.
My wife went there,
You
too.
grew up
What is
that way,
that?
though.
I was raised that way.
You grew up.
It was from my ancestors.
Yeah, I went to Ancestry.com, and Daddy Ancestor said, you must pull for this team, or there will be a full moon and voices under the mountain. Well, what are you supposed to do with that information?
You do what you have to do, Sean.
Will
You do what you have
do
to
a therapy real quick for me? Ethically speaking.
do. How does that make you feel?
There comes a time where I just don't even try to bridge the segues. Like, let's just go back.
Yeah, there's no reason to.
Because, like, seriously, therapists are there sometimes, and I'm like, ooh, I was so sly with, like, bringing that together. Not going to even try this one. Nope.
No need for glue.
Yeah.
So without bridging the gap,
We are talking about tribalism.
yes.
I'm curious your thoughts on all that.
Yeah.
On tribalism?
Well, it related to what we're talking about.
So I think that's a beautiful term for it, right? When you come back to, and even sports ball, but your tribalism, like your family brought you into that culture of sports, or I think about like art or any number of things, but like we want connection at the core. So I love that word and that piece of like, of course, in the moment when they think, oh my gosh, this is someone I'm seeing who is part of our roots and can teach us and part of our ancestral story. Of course they were pulled to, like Katara, and was so pulled to learn
so
from her.
interesting because like it's one of those terms that maybe gets a negative rap because often it can be.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a neutral situation.
I think the negative rap comes to the fact that you would ignore red flags, or you don't
If you're
hold
doing it for the sake
accountability
of being tribal
because
without-
of it's like no. Like
Yeah.
it's one of those things where if they are just like me, they have to be a good person like me.
I see. Yeah.
And so
Right.
you're kind of ignoring things where it's like, that should be called out. That's not really good. But they're on my side, so I can't really call it out. Like that's kind of where I feel like that might be the problem.
So it's like tribalism is not bad. It's what happens within that layer.
Seeking connection shouldn't be the problem. Seeking connection is a good thing.
Sure.
And seeking it based on common interests or common roots is fine. And by all means, you are the expert.
No. I'm here for it.
But it's very much the problem comes with the fact where you are ignoring unhealthy behavior because they then fit with your roots. And maybe it's come from a blindness where it's like, hey, if they're like me, no, they can't do like that because that means I could be like that and I can't do that. And maybe it's a blindness. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think when we talk about the idea of like otherisms or things that we don't understand as much, right? And we're speaking to it as like a threat, or if you're different than and then rejected, that's of course going to create more separation and maybe internalize like insecurity or like really creating that emotional pain. But if we're talking about tribalism from a sense of like we're seeing and validating identity and culture, that can also really be a strength. And people who have a stronger connection with identity and really clear of like what those values are, how it's meaningful, also have better psychological outcomes in terms of like mental health. And so it really kind of, I think, depends on how the messages are framed and if it creates more connection, but also if it's creating like a sense of disconnection, shame, and guilt, then that's going to create a lot of psychological turmoil.
Well put. I mean, and that's kind of the journey they're about to go through, right? It maybe starts with the former and then ends with the latter there.
And I think we really see that turmoil as we see the story arc continue with this episode. Yeah.
Yeah, because Hama brings about that she was one of the waterbenders that was kidnapped by the Fire Nation. Mm-hmm. And so Katara's like, I'm the last waterbender left in the tribe.
Damn the show for creating backstory and empathy for characters you just want to maybe just
hate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And but you can't. Well, that's the thing. Like, you have people that are evil for evil's sake. And then you have people that are evil due to the circumstances that have happened to them, where it's
protective,
almost like a survival mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
I really think the only like true evil character is Fire Lord Ozai. I'm sorry, Phoenix Lord Ozai. We're season 3 now.
Honestly, you could say that, but you can also take the fact that his father.
We got some of his
exactly.
story.
We could. It feels like that at least most of the time. Where I think. But that reveal doesn't come till late.
Yeah, because I mean, you could take that Fire Lord Ozai wasn't supposed to be the Fire Lord; it was supposed to be Iroh, and so he might have been set as just second best of
is
never being good.
Evil.
And as soon as he could find a way that he could put himself ahead, he took it.
Yeah. We're not excusing shitty behavior. We're just contextualizing it.
Yeah.
We're putting into the picture of we understand why this behavior is happening.
Yeah.
But we're also not saying, okay, this is okay to be occurring to hurt people or to be out towards entire groups of people.
So I'm going to ask a question because that brings an interesting thought, because you're absolutely right. We shouldn't excuse bad behavior just because we understand it. But I'm very curious if understanding the bad behavior and where it's stemming from, is that more so to help hold accountability, or is it more so to help understand systematic situations that are creating this that need to be changed?
Can both be true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because we're talking, so you're speaking to individual and the system, right?
Yeah.
So
it's like we could see, like, hey,
so.
the fact that she was being kidnapped, that all these waterers were being kidnapped, and she did what she did to survive. Mm-hmm. Yes, we can recognize that she was being wrong and evil for manipulating in that way, but we can also recognize the system that would create that.
So I have 2 thoughts.
Give me your thoughts.
One.
And if you have more than 2, that's fine.
I keep them minimal.
This is Minimalodian hour.
My tiny lady brain. So anyway,
No one has a brand new sentence again. You said it. This is so far from the truth.
The feminist society is so mad right now.
Thank you.
I'm so confused.
Let's edit that. No,
it stays.
No,
It stays.
I know.
Oh my goodness,
I
I'm
did
a woman.
not-
What do I know?
I did not
Bitch,
sign
you are
away.
professional.
Me, woman.
Professional
Me, no,
moments?
not no.
Okay. So for context, I've lost all my thoughts now. Anyway.
You had 2 of them.
So for context, side story. I have a friend who likes to lovingly pick on me, and he'll say something like, "Oh, you and your little lady brain." So that's where that came from. But without context, it sounded like my one-liner. I really just slammed myself. So
It did.
So, friend
And we
who
loved it.
criticizes our wonderful friend who is super smart,
it's a loving.
I hope you feel heard, and I hope you fuck yourself.
Oh
He doesn't mean that.
no, not at all.
See, because here's the thing
Oh, wait,
with
he doesn't mean that. Yeah,
backstories.
right.
Is Ty was imprisoned by the Fire Nation.
Oh my heavens. Okay.
So, your thoughts? You had 2 of them.
Wait. Shit. So Ty,
Yes, Leia.
you had spoken to
What had you spoken to?
individual and societal change, and like, is this storyline like what's the context here, and do we still excuse the behavior even if we understand it? That's kind of where we were, right? And I think that's a huge theme of the show, is that there needs to be both individual and societal change Like it starts from the very get-go where we're talking about we have different groups literally like attacking each other and villainizing each other. And so I think this is a really rich theme within the context of the show. And then the second part that I was thinking about is we don't excuse shitty behavior, even though we understand it. We talk a lot about that, for example, even in choices we make. So for example, when I lose my cool and my, historically, this is something I've really worked on over time, but like raise my voice or be short with a loved one, or sometimes like I might get a little snippy, right? Behaviorally. I said, hold on, let me finish.
I haven't said shit. Go ahead.
I will hold your soft face if you say a word.
So the behavior isn't effective or aligned with what I'm wanting, right, in the bigger picture of the relationships or life. And while the emotion of feeling upset is valid, the behavior may not be aligned with what we really want in our core and isn't effective in the outcome, and the behavior itself we're not going to say is okay. So it's just kind of an example that we think of human behavior. What are the choices we're making? We do have power over our choices. And the context is important, but really highlighting where can we have choice and change.
Are the most effective stories in pop culture the ones that paint a picture of it's a tug of war between intent and accountability? Is that it? Is that how you like strike storytelling gold?
I think we feel very connected to that.
Don't
right?
we feel that in life, right?
Totally.
I mean, art imitates life, whatever. But like,
yeah.
Does that feel like that is just such a top tier theme that if you're talking about that, I mean, and it can be nuanced in so many different ways, but
I love
how important is that?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's very important.
I think in order for us to feel pulled into a story, I think that's paramount. Like
it's conflict.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to feel
human experience.
We need to feel conflict, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. You had thoughts now, Mr. I'm going to touch that face.
Touch that face.
Yeah.
I can touch this.
Oh, look at that.
So soft.
See?
One of the things I struggled with was when you were saying like, hey, like I can be snippy and maybe that's not conducive to what I'm trying to do. It's yes, we can recognize that, but I feel like there's also not a lot of grace for just recognizing that feelings aren't bad, they just are. And maybe you were in a space where you couldn't hold that together, where you had a lot of stuff going on, shit had been a bad day, and yes, taking it out on people, not the kindest thing, but making restitution and stuff like that. It's like, I feel like there's a way to give ourselves more grace for when we have these big emotions, because honestly, in a society that isn't really conducive for exploring these big emotions, because I mean, I know at least for myself, I didn't grow up in a family that was like, oh, hey, yeah, your big emotions, you can feel them. That's fine. It's a safe space. It was very much of, the fuck, you better show respect and shut the fuck up. And not in so many words, Mom and Dad, if you're listening, what the fuck are you doing? But I still love you.
I love your parents too. But fuck
Yes,
off. Don't
but
be
fuck
here.
off.
You and if you're under 6.
Yes.
Wow.
So
that
Teddy,
means we're
if
saying
you're
7.
listening to this,
Teddy,
I love you,
get
but
out of here.
fuck off.
Is our bar every time Teddy ages a year? It's fuck off.
I mean, we
He'll be
always said
7.
it was
He'll be
6.
7.
He'll
At the time of this
Holy
recording.
crap, Teddy is grown.
I know.
He has
He's
been
still
around
3.
for all of the Harry Potter books. That amount of time. 7.
Yes. So he has been
I was wizard
alive
math.
for
It was
almost
wizard
as long as
math.
Harry Potter has gone to Hogwarts.
Yeah.
It was oh man, I got to get better at being concise. I had a moment in season 3 where I did it, and then I've regressed.
Harry Potter
isn't
cool anymore.
No, it is.
I don't know.
So
Amongst
Harry-
younger populations.
So Harry
I don't
Potter
know.
is still cool. What's being wrestled is J.K. Rowling and
Yes.
her.
That's another
Yeah.
another
Totally,
podcast.
totally.
Yes.
So coming back, I want to get to something because you brought up something for me, Ty. We are talking about impact versus intent,
Yes.
right? So is my intent to be a dick to the people I love? No. Is the impact sometimes, especially if I get short, that they feel hurt? And yes, right? And so I think it's important that, yes, we're going to give grace for when we're not at our best selves. That if we can have repair, connection, security, and relationship, like there's so many nuances. Yet at the same time, the behavior choice, we do have choice of how we respond to big emotions. We do have choice of like, is this a time, for example, for me where I need to say I need to take 5, which I do, or maybe 20, or, however long we take, or...
Depends on how many candy bars you have.
Correct.
The Take 5 candy bar?
No,
Reese's? Anyone?
That's why I laughed.
Oh, okay. Sean looked at me like, the fuck are you talking
I
about?
turned my head like a confused appa.
Did you not get it?
Now I do.
Okay.
The jokes, when they're explained, can be funny.
I understood.
I don't know why I'm
Anyways,
saying things like that. I'm like a fucking walking PSA. What's happening to me?
I love you.
Thank you. But why?
So we cut back to Hama, and Hama, after mentioning that she is from the Southern Water Tribe, that she's a waterbender, and when Katara opens up that she is too, and again, this is very much, she can see every other bender as just someone to connect with, whereas...
That thread, that's a consistency.
Yeah,
throughout
it's
the whole
either
show, right?
if you lost a parent, or if you're a bender that's not dealing with fire, Katara wants to bond with you.
Yeah.
And so Hama's like, I want to teach you so many things. Let me teach you something. And so Katara's like, oh my goodness, I want to learn more about our culture. And everyone seems to be fine, but it still seems a little off and creepy. And so we get to the point
Kind
where...
of how we felt last episode about Lake Laogai.
Yes.
This is different. This is a little more on the nose.
Oh, this is very on the nose.
Yeah.
This is the hammer has hit in the nail. So...
But we understand
Straight on.
why Katara is interacting the way she is with Hama.
And that's why we talk about
it makes
tribalism,
so much sense.
because
Yeah,
she's very much goggles on. She can't see the red flags, but neither can anyone else because they're like, oh yeah, she's from the Southern Water Tribe. She must be super cool and chill.
Yeah.
Right.
She's anything but cool and chill. So at this
I mean,
point,
she's powerful.
yeah, it is
That's
very
cool.
powerful,
Terrifying.
Yeah.
extremely terrifying,
Creepy.
And
she
extremely
gives
creepy.
comfort to those who are camping.
I'm so validating. Oh my gosh,
I'm
Let's
tired
go
of going
camping,
camping without someone showing up and saying things are dangerous. Things are dangerous, children. Did you bring your whiskey?
Are you the reason why?
I don't even know what I just said. Cut that.
And so the gang is going around trying to figure out, like, hey, what's going on? And everyone's talking about how, like, oh, yeah, we don't go out on the full moon. The only person that's ever survived a full moon is this guy.
Right.
And this old man Phil, or whatever his name is. I can't remember. And so at that point...
Is she? We're going to find out who this is?
Yes.
Okay. Because this is a fun journey for me because I have forgotten.
Oh, yeah. So basically,
Tell the story.
We now cut back to Katara, who's learning waterbending from Hama. Hama talks about how it's like, you don't need to be by water to waterbend. And Katara is like, oh, yeah, I've seen people who in the swamp could manipulate the water in the vines to control plants. And I even was able to use the sweat off my brow to water. I've waterbended the sweat off my brow.
I love the way they animate this scene too because it's kind of spaghetti western. You have the classic 50-50.
Yeah.
I'm holding my hands up kind of like a goalpost. Like 50-50 would be you see both figures in frame on the far right and the far left, right? 50-50. And I think there's some rotational aspect and it feels like a Western because it's done and it's not the only scene that's been done like this. Plenty have been, but this feels kind of on the nose.
Yeah.
With the characters we're talking about here. And it's I don't know, I think about Tombstone or something like that. It excites me.
I'm glad that excites you.
I think you're glad.
I'm very glad.
You seem fine about it.
Well, now I'm wondering if I am fine.
Waterfowl.
Waterfowl. So at this point, Hama is able to explain, it's like, you can actually pull water and moisture anywhere. So you can pull the water in the air. You can pull water from the plants. And so she introduces...
This is in the field, right?
Yeah, they go to a field of fire lilies, and it's beautiful.
Well, and
It
they even
is.
comment on how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
The illustration there I thought was stunning.
my
Now,
God,
this,
yeah.
this point actually was one of the more insightful periods because they're like, yeah, I love coming out here. It's so beautiful. And then she's like, you can pull the water from the water lilies. And she does that. She pulls like a perfect circle around her of all the water and moisture from the fire lilies.
And you see the death and the
Yes.
darkness of the plants.
Yes.
Was that the first? I mean, we have suspicions, right?
We had suspicions.
That had to be the first. Like, oh, you're doing some fucked up shit.
Well, no, here's where it gets even further.
Yeah.
So Katara even notices it's a shame about the fire lilies, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like she recognizes, this is sad that this had to happen in order to pull this. I recognize, yes, I can do this if I need it, but this is
why do I
still
want to do
sad.
that?
And then Hama's like, they're just flowers. Like immediately the whole is like, oh, I come out here because they're pretty. They're just flowers. Like immediately the disregards the beauty of life.
And
There's really moral, ethical, like
Yes.
tension that's building.
And the show has already set up our connection to Earth. So it's not a throwaway situation. Like however you feel about flowers is irrelevant. It's how you feel connected to the space that you occupy. And that, I mean, I'm not going to say I teared up at that moment, but it was another moment in the show where I was like,
You
like
feel an ick.
pain, like guttural pain in the chest, where I was like, this feels really bad right now.
Yeah.
I agreed.
For obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons.
I noticed a part of me was like hoping, and I know this is so naive, but I was like, they're going to put the water back in the flowers.
These
right?
flowers are going to grow again, right?
I genuinely thought
They're
they were
going to leave
they're
it
gonna-
better than they found it, right?
Yeah, leave no trace.
Was that-
Leave no trace.
I mean, they can't.
They didn't.
Couldn't they put water back in the flower? Don't laugh at me that hard.
Actually, no, they should be able to. That's a great point. Why?
Leave me alone.
I guess
am
it's not the
sighing-
point of the episode,
I am
but
sighing
Jesus, they should have. They
because
should have.
It's easy
right.
to pull something out. It is a lot more delicate a process to put something back
Do you
in.
Ty- Water, Ben? How will you know that?
You have 2 children. Do not sit here and talk about it's easier to pull things out.
He's so proud of
He's
himself for
dancing
that.
right now. What the fuck? Oh god.
He's so proud of himself for that joke.
We
And
reinforced
so while that's taking place, the gang is going around, and it is now nighttime. And so Hama is showing Katara, it's like, I need to show you, this is the most powerful move we can ever do. It can only be done on the full moon. We need the power of the full moon. So while they're doing that, they talk to Old Man Phil, whatever his name is. And they're like, why are y'all calling me Old Man Phil? It's like,
Like, that is not my name in IMDb.
yeah, and he's old. And he was like, yeah, I just remember my body was working without my consent. It was just running, and I got to mountains, and it was only when the sun came out that I was freed, and I was able to escape, and I never go near the mountain
It's like
again.
it's that juxtaposition again. More questions still.
Yeah.
We're gonna get answers, but
And
more
so when they said they're
questions.
going to the mountain, that's when Toph was like, oh, I knew there was people screaming under the mountain.
Exactly.
Which recontextualizes that early line.
Yes.
Makes it arguably more creepy.
Very creepy.
Yep.
And so while Hama is teaching Katara bloodbending, she goes in and talks about how bloodbending. She talks about how she escaped the Fire Nation prior. She now goes into detail of how she did it. How in this prison they kept all these waterbenders away from water.
I hate
And
this, man.
as
I
they
hate
were
this.
just going through, she was able to feel the water through blood. And so she practiced on rats. She killed so many rats
So many.
to practice how to control the blood. And when she was ready, she then used it on the Fire Nation soldiers. And that's how she escaped. And so she opens up about that. And Katara immediately was like, you're the one that's been kidnapping people at night on the full moon.
Yeah.
And she's like, I
Yeah.
don't want anything to do with this. I don't want to learn bloodbending. And Hama was like, you should have said something before it was a full moon, and bloodbends her. It's like, I'm now going to have to control you. And during this time, the gang is able to find the cave, and they're able to find everyone inside the cave locked up. It was like, yeah, it was that crazy old lady. And like, Hama, fuck, we know she was crazy. And so at that point, they're now racing over. And Katara, to her credit, as she's being struggled to control under bloodbending, was able to regain control of herself. It's like, you're not the only one who gains strength through the full moon, and my waterbending is stronger than yours. And now they're going into a straight up waterbending battle where they're throwing water and ice at each other. They're pulling water from the trees, and it's looking crazy as fuck. And then Sokka and Aang had the misfortune of arriving on the battle scene.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so at that point, Hama was like, I'm going to take control of your friends. And they now are being forced to fight Katara.
And Katara is trying to protect them and still fight for her life. And yeah. And she's
a mess.
you just see, like, she's so powerful
Yeah.
in this. Like, yep.
She gets to a point where she finally is able to freeze them both to trees.
Yeah.
And then Hama was like, well, fine. If you want to protect yourself against your friends, how about you try to protect them from each other? And she ends up bringing them closer where Sokka's sword is now being outstretched to stab Aang. using bloodbending, and then Katara has to make this last-minute call where she bloodbends Hama to stop it. Like, the gang stops, like, oh my goodness, am I free? And they look at Hama, and she's being controlled with bloodbending, and Katara is freaking out that she had to do this.
I think she's crying.
She is, because Hama was like, I succeeded. And Katara is grieving. She learned about how to manipulate the body against their will.
Leia,
this pains her.
How many feelings are too many feelings in one scene?
So I think we could agree, because we're not all morbid masochists, but we could agree that we were all really uncomfortable through this, right? And the fact that Hama at the end was like, I've succeeded.
Yes.
Right? Like, I'm still captured, doesn't matter, but like, this legacy can continue. And I really think a lot about, like, we understand, again, the context of her story. What's her motivation to continue to manipulate and control people? Like, is that part of her just like needing to show her power? Like, that's so...
She does still have a strong feeling towards the Fire Nation.
She hates the Fire
She
Nation.
does.
That was the very put delicately.
And so
Yeah.
the fact that
That's her
bloodbending has
motivation.
passed down,
That's
she
true.
knows Katara's going to have to use it
she can
again.
use that
Yeah.
against the Fire Nation.
Yeah.
So, and she...
So maybe
that's
it's
her
not that
motive.
protection of her
But the
people.
fact that all like the episode title, The Puppet Master, is
It's so good.
in so many ways the perfect title for that episode.
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, we don't have to spell it out because we already did. But my goodness, yes, there was too much to feel in that moment.
But I think from a writing and ick factor, like this is actually probably one of my favorite episodes, I have to say, in the series. I think it's so good. And it brings so many conflicts, and I love how it adds to Katara's story arc, because we've now come through the seasons where you see her developing her skills and getting mad at Aang for developing faster and like getting desperate enough to steal the scroll, and right, and we see Katara developing so much in her training, and it's like the culmination in this moment where she didn't need anyone to teach her. She was able to find such a depth of meaning to protecting her loved ones, to be able to tune inward to bloodbending. And this is like a culmination for her.
And this pains her, because
Yeah,
this is one of those things where
of
she's
course,
like,
of course.
I've now gotten to a point where this is now in my hands, and
Yes.
I never wanted it.
To my recollection, does she use it again in the show?
Yes.
Yeah.
What
And
was
she's going to use it again when we get to the third episode we're going to cover, which is the Southern Raiders.
Why don't we
That's
just go ahead and jump right there?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we still have one more episode we want to cover.
Why don't we go ahead and jump right there?
So we're now going to cut to, this is part of a redemption arc for Zuko. So we're now going to cut to the Western Air Temple. This is where they have just finished the Day of Black Sun. They have failed in their mission to overtake the Fire Nation. They are feeling defeated. All of their allies have been captured and sent to a prison. They are really struggling here. And so at this point, this is also where Zuko has decided, I need to help the Avatar. The Fire Nation is actually full of shit, and I need to do what I can to help. So we even see like Zuko trying to prep himself up, like self-talking, trying to I'm no longer bad. I figured this out. Sorry guys, can I teach you how to firebend? And so he finally just pops up, and everyone's ready to fight him to the death.
He kind of was asking for it.
He kinda
just
was.
kind of after everything.
After
it's like,
everything.
my friend, you can't just show up to a campsite and ask if you're feeling safe.
The buildup was kind of endearing, though, like the
Sure.
practice and the buildup. But yep, keep going.
Absolutely.
What was endearing was his lack of social awareness.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
it's information that's given to us, the viewer, but not
They don't have
to
it.
the gang.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
obviously we feel like we're team Zuko at this point.
Yeah.
So of course, it's like they're not going to react the same way,
Oh, and they absolutely do not.
and they don't.
And it was one of those things where he comes in and he tries to offer us, like, you can even keep me as a prisoner. Just like, I just want to help.
Oh, yes.
And they're very much like, you need to leave. Otherwise, we're going to fucking kill you.
They say that.
They do. Like, they're very much like, we want nothing to do with you. And it was very interesting that as soon as they left, Toph was like, are y'all guys dumb?
Are y'all guys dumb?
Are y'all guys dumb?
We need a firebender teacher.
And we just had one show up on a silver platter, and you turned him away. And she was she was like, sometimes I think y'all are the ones that are blind.
That's right.
And blinded by their frustrations, their hatred, their anger. Like, very much, they were being blinded.
I'm frustrated with how good writing can be sometimes.
Oh my gosh. I love how frustrating it gets when the writing's so good.
You like to see frustration?
Well, like I like to be frustrated when it's like, oh my goodness, that's so good. Like, I understand why they're writing this, but it's frustrating that they also are being blinded by their own emotions, but they were written so well that it makes sense why they're emotional in this way.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where Top decides...
You must be this tall to ride this roller coaster of emotions.
And I think this is also very realistic for human behavior in terms of what you want might be right in front of you. Because of our story or emotions, like just being right in our face, we miss that there's an opportunity and have to kind of work through.
You know, that brings something up. I think I've mentioned this before. There's a book by, oh my gosh, I can't remember her name. Kim Woo-an, I think is her name. But the book is called Thinking 101. And it's breaking down the biases that we as humans have. And there's a mentality called the sucker mentality, where we don't want to be seen as a sucker.
Exactly.
And so the experiment that they put on is like, hey, we're putting people in pairs of 2, and one person gets $10, but they can only keep if they then share it with someone else. And so with the person that they've shared it with, they're paired up with. And so typically it's like, oh, the smart thing to do is like split it 50-50. I get 5, you get 5. They walk away with $5. And then they might get away with like, 6 and 4, or like 7 and 3. But as soon as you get to like, hey, I'm willing to give you $2, they want to say no. They don't want to feel like they're taking advantage. Even if they're going to get money they never would have otherwise had, they don't want to feel like a sucker. And so they reject that. And they're like, I'd rather we both lose out than we both gain something, even if I gain lesser, just because I don't want to be seen as a sucker.
There's a tipping point for the value proposition.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's a similar experiment with toddlers and marshmallows.
The marshmallow experiment.
It's
We love that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think it's the thesis is aligned with that.
No one wants to feel like a sucker, so they'd rather everyone lose than they gain even just a little bit extra.
Yep.
And so I think that's what's kind of at play here is that they can't trust Zuko. I mean, and granted, that's a very valid conclusion to come to.
Heck yeah.
But they're very much willing to sacrifice their ability to have a firebending teacher because they don't want to be seen as a sucker who trusted someone again. And at that point, Toph goes to see Zuko, and she kind of surprised him because he's in bed. It's sleeping. It's at nighttime. And so,
Which if I'm sleeping in the woods and something comes up on me, I'm going to be on high alert, right?
I mean, after
You're
just
going to
Hama,
assume it's a
Yeah.
blood-bending witch. Right? I mean, that's rational.
Or a raccoon.
A
a
blood-bending
blood-bending raccoon? Yeah, that's even worse.
Horrifying.
Have you? What's your camping experience?
Actually, you turd.
Guilty.
No, honestly, I
That's
do.
probably the meanest thing I've ever heard her say something to you.
Is it?
You turd. Because you're so nice. Like, I've never really heard you
Yeah,
say
I don't.
something
I
nice.
don't think Leia insults.
No, honestly.
She tells
okay,
jokes.
I have two. I have two.
She
stories.
called me a
Do the
Do I
motherfucker.
tell? I have so many stories.
I thought
now.
she called me a motherfucker.
because you are.
No.
I mean, technically I am, yes.
Yes.
But what was happening is, like, she was saying something. I was like, oh, it's actually this. She goes, oh, you're right, motherfucker. And I just started
Comma.
laughing. And
Yeah.
she was like, no, I'm talking about my
That-
brain. My brain's the motherfucker. I didn't remember it.
That is why Oxford commas have so much importance in today's society.
Yeah. Yeah, no, at one point, gosh, I'll tell many stories at this point because they're coming to my mind and Sean can go whatever he needs to. But I did at one point, someone once told me that I wasn't necessarily like funny, but I tell jokes or something like that. And I looked at Sean because afterwards I wanted to check my facts and I was like, without any context, I just walk into his office and I go, Sean, do I tell jokes? That's it.
The best joke
That's
here
it.
is that I had an office because I didn't. It was a shared space.
I was trying to be concise, man.
It was good.
Okay,
No,
anyways.
it made me laugh because I
You
thought
laughed
it was
right
a
in my
joke.
face.
I
Yeah,
thought
you thought it was a joke.
The joke.
Yes.
The question was the joke. So there was a lot of
It's
layers to
very
it, and I was like,
meta.
man, that is really good.
Yeah.
And your face was like,
serious.
Why are you laughing? I'm asking you a question.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? Why am I laughing? Is that not a? Oh, you're asking if you're funny? So it was a confusing but hilarious moment. And
So, audience, am I funny? Don't
I
answer.
do think no. I think that was a moment that solidified our friendship. I really do. Yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
It was yeah.
Yeah, I but speaking of insults, I will leave it at this story and then come back. But when I was about 15, 16, I'm on the school bus. There's this kid kind of like getting on my nerves, picking on me a little bit, like just annoying, right? And I was just getting so frustrated. And one of my good friends to this day loves to tell a story because he watched the whole thing go down. And he'll say like, yeah, I just watched you stand up, turn around. And he's like, this is going to be good. And I just go, Mark, you... And I'm like super frustrated. And my friend is like, I could just see it. And I'm waiting. And I go, Mark, you fuck.
I literally had to ground myself to the floor to not fall over. Oh, it's so strong. It's so good. For our audio listeners.
Now, was the fuck frustration? Because you're like, I can't think of a better name to call him.
That's exactly what it was.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
what it was. I didn't know what else to say, so I just go, fuck. Like, that was it.
It transcended grammar.
It did. It transcended language.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful.
I can't believe I've never told you this story. Okay, coming back. So
We are glad you did.
Oh, she's crying.
Oh,
this is 3 for 3, guys.
we are consistent, if nothing else. There have been tears in every episode the past 3 weeks. Wow.
Okay, come back.
Avatar?
Yeah, Avatar.
Speaking of tears.
So Tom
camping, raccoons,
Yes.
blood painting.
Bloodbending raccoons. So Toph goes to see Zuko, and at this point, Zuko doesn't know someone's coming, so someone sneaks up on him, and he freaks out and he firebends and burns Toph's feet. And Toph...
When did that get there?
Yeah.
When did this... Hey, Ty, there's
Hey,
a
Sean.
mic in front of me.
I know. When did that get there?
I think a blood-bending raccoon has planted this here. Oh, well, so Toph gets her toes burnt.
She gets her toes burnt, and very much like Zuko's so apologetic. He's, oh my gosh, I didn't know it was you. I'm so sorry. I freaked out because it was the middle of the night. And Toph is very much like she's in pain, so she's like, get the fuck away from me. I'm in pain, and she runs away. Zuko is like trying to help, but he gets pushed aside. She ends up like firebending him away, like hitting him with some earthbending. And so she finally gets back to the group, and they're like, oh my goodness, Toph, are you okay? It's like, no, my feet are burned. Zuko burned my feet. And they are like, oh, this motherfucker fucked up for the last time. And they're like, and what I love about Toph is Toph pauses. She goes, no, I kind of snuck up on him. I don't think this was like intentional. It was an accident. Like just recognizing this was an accident. It wasn't intentional. He wasn't trying to be a bitch. He just got scared like a bitch and burned me. And so she's holding that space for Zuko, but everyone else is like, no, this is all I needed. I'm ready to end him now. Mm-hmm. And
because they put that out there.
yeah.
Sure.
I mean, to Katara's credit from season 2, she says, like, every time I thought about the enemy, I saw your face.
Right.
So anything he does is an act of the Fire Nation against them. So it's very much like, no. He fucked up for the last time. We're ending this now. But just as they're about to do that, who shows up? Combustion Man.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that fucking guy.
He's so
That fucking
he's
guy.
so powerful. I was like, what the heck? Yeah. Mm-hmm, go ahead.
Yeah, so at this point, combustion bending is a form of fire bending where they're basically concentrating the chi in their forehead to shoot out a laser that explodes. And so at this point, like, he shows up, and Zuko, who had admitted earlier that he hired Combustion Man to kill the Avatar or capture the Avatar, then it's like, no, stop. I won't pay you. Okay, fine. I'll pay you double. Like, he's very much trying to stop Combustion Man from attacking. But Combustion Man's got, like, he's now got, like, a vendetta. He's like, no, this group escaped me. I now have to, like, fix my pride, and I gotta, like, tear them a new one.
He's committed.
He's committed.
Combustion committed.
But he is combustionated. I made that word up.
Sounds like a personal problem.
All words are made up.
All words are made up. You're right.
Yeah.
It's just the meaning
So
we
the
assign.
gang notices that Zuko's trying to stop Combustion Man, and they all join in. And it wasn't until like Sokka threw his boomerang and knocked him in the face that the combustion ended up like blowing up in his face. And so everyone else is ready to accept Zuko as like, hey, we saw you try to like defend us and fight for us. We're willing to accept you. Katara's not. Like everyone else, like Aang is like, I think, because I'm skipping ahead. Zuko opens up and said, hey, I recognize that firebending is dangerous and it can hurt the people you love, and I have to be careful. And that speaks to Aang. So if you don't recall,
That's right.
Aang tried to learn firebending earlier and it ended up hurting Katara. So when he hears that, Aang is like, I think you're supposed to be my teacher, but this isn't my decision alone.
That full circle there is just beautiful. I mean,
So he reaches out to Toph. He reaches out to Sokka. Both of them is like, look, I trust you. So Toph is like, hey, this gives me a chance to get even with him for burning my feet. Like she says it jokingly, but she's very much like, no, I support this. Sokka's like, I trust you, Aang. I think it's a good idea. Let's do it. Katara's like, I trust you, Aang. And that's it. She leaves it at that, and they will all walk away.
Leia, is there a forgiveness aspect here, or like what does that look like for people?
To go through the process of forgiveness?
Yeah, I mean it's different for everybody, of course, right? But
This one wasn't forgiveness of Zuko. This was just
Is it, though?
I accept.
I don't think
Aang's-
so yet.
is it, but well,
because
think
at
about
the very
this though.
end of the
If we
episode-
talk about forgiveness, I think we have to acknowledge like forgiveness is for yourself. It's not for the
Yeah.
other person. So if this isn't forgiveness, what is it?
I feel like it's going to come up in the next episode that we talk about.
I think forgiveness unfolds in the next episode. I think this is trust in Aang. And I think this is cognitive dissonance, actually. So I think this is a tension that Katara is experiencing where it's, I am getting data input, for example, from people I trust and love, that maybe this person who I've had so much conflict with has changed. But in her framework of Zuko, he is not capable of change. He is dangerous. So she's in this tension point of the people I love and trust are saying one thing. I still believe in this other thing. And her thoughts are in incredible tension, which creates dissonance, which is what cognitive dissonance is. So I think that's the point of what we're seeing here for her.
So I'm very curious because you're saying cognitive dissonance because she literally goes up after like everyone's left. Zuko starts unpacking and she's there. And she goes, you may have fooled everyone else with your transformation, but I see through your bullshit. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you just take one step back, you won't have to worry about your destiny anymore because I'll end it right then and there. Like she threatens him with murder.
She does.
She's very much like,
Yeah.
I don't forgive you. I don't trust you. I'm trusting them. And if I see you fuck up, I will end you.
But she doesn't.
So, well, because she finally gets to a point of forgiving in the next episode that we cover. So it's very much, I don't see a dissonance so much as she's like, hey, I'm letting you know if you fuck up, I will end you because I don't trust you.
I still think there's dissonance. She's not like imprisoning him. She's not out to get him. She's still willing to say, okay, in the next episode, she's like, I'll go on this journey because you might actually be helpful. Yes, she's still using him.
It's dissonance because she's clearly there's something still there that she wants to believe in, right? Because
maybe it's-
obviously on the surface she's saying, no, I don't believe you. But if
There's
she
something.
really didn't, there would be action there.
She wouldn't have said yes.
Correct.
Exactly.
So that's the.
Okay.
I think that maybe is that the dissonance you're speaking
Yes,
to.
I think we've seen how powerful Katara is. She can kick his ass. She chooses not to. She says yes. There's a tension here for her.
Maybe there is for us too. I don't know.
I think so too. Mm-hmm.
I feel like maybe at this point I'm like, I think I'm Team Zuko, but I don't know.
So I think,
but I'm also with Katara.
This is one of the instances where Zutara, that ship, came where people like wanted Zuko and Katara to end up together. Zutara.
Okay.
I did wonder at one point. Okay, interesting. I'm glad they didn't. Like, I think, but yeah.
It worked out for the best, but it was very much like between the Crossroads of Destiny and then this point. And then when we get to the Southern Raiders, this is the last episode we're going to cover for this season. This is the point where they're kind of doing their thing. The Fire Nation attacks them at the Western Air Temple.
Yeah.
And Zuko like steps up and like fights off his sister to a standstill while everyone else is able to escape.
He even thinks at one point that his sister might die.
Yeah.
She's right. So there's high stakes for him here.
Yeah.
For
I mean, there was
sure.
high stakes for him. They thought he died because he fell down, but he was able to land on a Fire Nation ship and rise back up. And once that battle is done, everyone in the gang is like cheering him on. It's like, man, I can't believe you came through. Thanks for coming clutch. That was awesome. Thank you for helping everyone escape. And everyone's all for him except for Katara. Katara's like, fuck you. And so she's like, Zuko, you fuck. And it's very much
Who said that at one point?
and so at that point, like Zuko's like, the fuck, everyone else is trusting me. What's still your problem? And it's like, well, maybe because I was the first one to trust you and you burned me.
Yeah.
And he very much is like, what can I do to make this right? And she goes, oh, I don't know. Maybe conquer the Earth Kingdom for the right team and maybe bring back my mom. How about that?
And then he offers.
Oh boy, does that spark an idea or what?
It sparks an idea. Because Zuko ends up cock blocking Sokka. Because
I think it's called sock blocking.
It was sock blocking. There we go. And so at that point, because Suki was trying to sneak in and get some Suki, if you know what I'm talking about. And at that point,
I hate that. I hate that so much. I love you, but I hated that. But I want you to keep going.
So
it's confusing. You see, sometimes you feel confused about the show.
Okay.
And your friends. Cognitive dissonance.
So he ends up sneaking into Sokka's tent, completely ruining his experience with Suki. And at that point, he's like, hey, can you tell me what happened to your mom? Because Katara said something about your mom, and I just want to know the story. And that's when you find out, like, how the Fire Nation attacked, and then basically when the Fire Nation left, Katara's mom was gone. Sokka and Katara's mom was gone. And so at that point, Zuko was like, hey, what was the flag, the insignia like? And like, it was a sea raven.
And that was it. That's all you needed.
That's all he needed. He goes, those were the Southern Raiders. I know exactly who they were. And so he literally sits out the rest of the nights. This was during the day. He then goes through the entire night sitting in front of Katara's tent. And now it's the morning. And Katara's like, the fuck are you doing? I was like, I waited all night to talk to you.
So, We're about to dive into a new theme, right? Which is, can vengeance lead to healing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he very much is like, I can help you find the man who like captured your mom. And again, she didn't want to give Zuko a chance, but as soon as he said that, just immediately like, it's on. Let's go.
Yeah, this has so many different perspectives, right? Because something in Zuko has a story of revenge, right?
Yeah.
So for him, he knows what it feels like to want that. He sees that as something healing he could give to Katara. She's still so in her mourning and grief and turmoil. She says this, they both see this as an option, and Aang comes in. And Aang is like, this is not a good idea. This is not going to be your answer.
Right, because
Right?
she comes up and is like, hey, Aang, I need to borrow Appa. And Aang jokingly was like, oh, is it your turn to have your adventure with Zuko? He goes, yes. And at first he was trying to joke, but then when he realizes, oh, no, this is serious. Wait, what are you trying to do? And so he tries to talk about, I was like, wait, you're trying to go after the man that like captured your mom? No, that's not... You need to learn forgiveness. And so, of course, Katara's like, I knew you wouldn't understand. Like, this is one of those instances where she turns, like, this person that I have not trusted, that I have hated and that I have loathed for so long, he at least understands me. And so, like, Aang was like, well, okay, well, fine. And so at night, they, like, sneak in and try to get on Appa. And Aang is like, oh, I'm here, and I forgive you. And they're like, cool, thanks, we're still leaving. And so at that point, Zuko kind of plays in, and I don't know if this is intentional, but he very much is trying to play it off like, yeah, forgiveness is for pussies. And I don't know if that was intentional of trying to get Katara. I was like, no, I need you to see what this takes. But they go to the communication tower. They sneak in like ninjas. I
think it is intentional. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it goes back to kind of what we were talking about earlier is like, what is forgiveness, right? What does that look like?
But I don't think Zuko knows that yet.
I agree. That's what I was going to say. So I would love to talk about the qualities of what makes forgiveness, as well as like why do we seek revenge, and
why do we think that's going to lead to it?
Yeah. So I'm curious about that as a discussion, right? Like the qualities that we think foster forgiveness. What do we think?
That's a tough conversation because I feel like Sean would have an answer first.
My response would be that forgiveness has to come from a place of letting go. It can't come from anybody else. It can't have anything to do with anybody else. It has to come from a place of saying, you know what? This happened. It is what it is.
It's radical
You
acceptance.
can change the way you feel about something. That is true. Like I think there's an expression that says like you don't have control over your emotions or your feelings, and that's a gray subject. But I think when you have an opportunity to reflect and change the way you feel about something, and that is powerful. So that forgiveness element it lives there, and I think I feel like maybe Zuko and Katara haven't really had that opportunity to reflect on that, or they haven't given themselves that opportunity.
So Aang talks about how like getting revenge is like having your enemy bit by a viper rat or rat viper while also getting poisoned yourself. Very much of, hey, while you're seeing them go down, you're going down too. And I think Zuko understands the want for revenge and vengeance better than anyone. And I don't think he's found the answer for it yet, which is why very much he's like, hey, no, I understand why she has this like desire. And while I don't have an answer for it, I know how to like go about it.
How do you dissect all that?
Well, I think it speaks to, again, he hasn't really been able to figure out his own journey of forgiveness and sees vengeance as an option for healing. But coming back, and I kind of want to bring this together, I love what Sean was speaking to of release and like letting go. And there is a very well-versed researcher, mindfulness and psychologist named Tara Brach, who speaks about the idea of radical acceptance. And radical acceptance is like a deep within our hearts, like it means we acknowledge that we're going to go through pain. We acknowledge the reality that is. And we are not going to approach it with a fighting the reality. Like, so an example is, for example, like one of the worst, like most imaginable heartaches of a parent losing a child. And that grief would actually be more painful if the parent is holding on to the ifs. Like, if I had done something differently, this child wouldn't have died. That's attaching to there was some illusion of control or being able to change. And I know this is getting really serious, right? But I think this is one of the most beautiful examples of like, this is the reality that the person is in their life. And the important part of healing is how do we kind of come back to the core of what's still meaningful.
Right. And Katara has that if you want to flip that.
Yes. Loss of parent.
Loss of a parent, right? So it's, how do I mean, But it makes so much sense that you would want to seek this
100%.
path of vengeance. Like, we all understand it.
There's more. There's a I think misconception, but in the time it feels more powerful. It feels like I can do something more attainable.
Oh, it's the tangible. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think that's Well,
like the letting go is maybe
harder.
abstract.
I think it's abstract. I think it's harder too.
It's harder,
I wonder-
but vengeance, like you can do a thing, and that could contribute to something.
I wonder if vengeance is often construed as justice. That if they could get justice for this wrong that was done to
Fairness,
them,
what has been to
they can finally find healing because justice has been
Justice!
served.
What a complex thing. Like I am so conflicted about the word justice. I'm like, yeah,
Same.
right. It's fascinating. Oh man, I think we could talk for 4 more episodes about that.
We could.
But yeah, so Katara and Zuko
Yeah,
are on their way
On a
to
journey.
I think his name is also Captain Dingusfuck.
Yeah, Captain Dingus another one. So they go to a communication tower, sneak in, they get where the Southern Raiders are located, and oh my goodness, the craziness. So Katara ends up like water bending an air bubble around Appa so he can breathe underwater, and they basically treat him as a torpedo, where he's able to go in and hit the boat. Katara's able to use her water bending to pull people off the boat. She ends up making like a huge wave to knock everyone else off, and they run into the boat. They go to the leader, and immediately like Zuko's blocking off all these fire bending attacks. Katara then blood bends this motherfucker to where he is now like basically his body is crumpling within itself. And it's fucking like heart-wrenching to see her do this. She's doing this with no doubt. She very much is like, I'm going to end this person's career.
It's going to be more than his career.
Oh, more than his career. And he ends up like shouting, and she looks at him and was like, you have to recognize me. Do you know who I am? And then she gets a closer look and she realizes that's not him.
She looks at his eyes.
His eyes, yeah. And at that point, like she stops and she almost, it looks like she's disgusted with the fact that she used bloodbending on the wrong person. Yeah.
It still paints that picture of how frustrating and non-constructive vengeance can be.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, what am I doing right now?
I think she needed to have that learning lesson.
Yeah.
But it's not even the
very
end,
important.
because then Zuko goes and interrogates, and he goes, "Oh, well, the old leader who would have done that retired 4 years ago. You're looking for Yan Ra." And as soon as Katara hears that, she goes, "It's still game on." They find out that Yan Ra, he's kind of pathetic. He is living with his mom. He's tending a garden. His mom has no respect for him.
He's snivelly.
He's
like,
snivelly. And so at that point, they corner him. And again, like he thinks he's being followed, and he is. But then he attacks the bush. And then Zuko comes in and pins him down. And it's like, we weren't behind the bush, you dumb dingus fuck. And so Katara comes in, and he goes, who the fuck are you? And she, in a crazy like display of power, like it's now raining. And she's able to stop all the rain and make like this bubble where they're all secluded. And he realizes, you were that little water tribe girl. And he pins her down, and he was like, oh,
that mirror image of recognition too from the previous scene to this one is fascinating. Like you think it's always going to be Katara who recognizes, but it's
and now
damn
lives.
you, Avatar, Last Airbender writers.
And at this point, he was like, well, fairness would mean that you take my mom away from me. And she immediately catches like, you're pathetic. You're willing to throw anyone under the bus to protect yourself. You're a sniveling little bitch. And she goes to basically end his life with a bunch of ice attacks and then doesn't go through with it. Like he opens his eyes and there's ice spears all around him just floating because she stopped it because she can't go through with it.
I'm conflicted to ask this question, but what happens if he is not this way? Does she react the same way? This is speculation. It doesn't.
If he had shown to be the monster that she always envisioned him to be,
I still think she reacts the same way. I do. I think she. Okay. Will she get to a place of pity? I don't know if this conversation has merit, but does pity contribute to the way she's able to respond to this situation.
He's also, I mean, he's no longer in a position of power,
Right.
where he can hurt people to the extent that they were hurt. I don't know, right? Like if the writing he were still in that position, I don't know.
And I think I asked the speculation because I'm wondering, does she get to this place regardless of who he is now? Maybe that's not a great question.
So
you know what I mean?
So I personally don't know,
Mm-hmm.
because
Well,
very
of course not.
much
Yeah,
like
we don't know.
if he had proven to be the monster, I think she would have had no hesitation. I think the fact that she saw how sniveling and how like weak and
Is he humanized in this moment?
I don't think he's humanized.
He's just powerless.
He's powerless. Like it's very much of like, hey, this person sadly isn't worth it.
So I wonder, maybe in him losing his power,
He
and
never
then-
lost his power because he firebends.
he does. But
You
I think,
mean
I
the
think,
power
I-
of authority?
Yeah, the power of authority. Like he's so characterologically kind of weak in this scene. So there's something here of maybe Katara like sees his powerlessness and realizes his power, like power and authority isn't everything. Like I don't know, because she's exerting power and control.
It's not going
There's
to give her
something that
anything
interrupts
to take out someone who was following orders. I mean, I'm saying that on a very kind of like low level,
Like
but
it's different. She was like, "Hey, this is a monster, and I slayed a monster."
Yeah.
If this is a, "Hey, this was a weak, dumb dingus fuck."
and that's interesting though. And I'm curious, Leia, like, what is that like? What does that mean for Katara? If I want to believe that no matter who this person is, Katara is still able to make the outcome is still the same.
I think we've been along her story arc for so long, and when we think of themes of morality and what shaped Katara, and like I want to believe that she, regardless of who he was, she wouldn't have killed him. Her story arc has been, how do I become like more skilled and powerful to be able to become this waterbender that I am? Yet it wasn't to kill people, it was to protect people.
Maybe she was wanting to be strong enough because she was like, "If I was strong enough, I could have protected my mom."
Yeah, there's something to that. And the mom sacrificed, right? So in that part of the story, I wonder about like Katara being in a space of like appreciating the mom's sacrifice and that softness. I don't know. I guess characterologically, maybe I just want to believe that she wouldn't have killed him. And
I think I'm there too.
yeah. And even with
Yeah.
like, I think there's other characters too that were so powerful and terrible and didn't die, like Zuko's dad at the end. He's lost his power for firebending.
But that wasn't Katara fighting him. That was
No,
Aang.
I agree.
And
I agree.
Because Aang's whole story of like not wanting to kill, and everyone tells like you're gonna kind of have to, and then him finding another way. But if it was Katara, I don't know. Like that's.
I wonder if that's the show though, as the writers. I don't know. That's kind of the link I was making maybe, but I'm noticing that we're all really conflicted and hesitant.
It
We
is.
don't know the
We don't
yeah.
know. And
We
I
don't.
asked that question because I didn't think we would come to an answer.
Well, because when
But
we
I
get to the end,
but I need this to be Katara's moment and not because of who this other person is.
I need to believe that Katara
Does that make sense?
would have done the right thing. Right?
Yeah, I need it
yeah.
to be. He could have been in any scenario of a human, and Katara still the script remains the same. Does that make sense?
I understand your need for that.
However,
It's not even however. It's we get to the end of this episode where Aang is like, "Oh, you forgave him," and she's like, "No,
Nope.
I will never forgive him." Like, there's no forgiveness there. There's no release there. But she then turns to Zuko and is like, "But I think I'm ready to forgive you," and she hugs Zuko.
Yeah.
Like it's very much she has this appreciation for Zuko willing to hold her that space for wanting revenge, even if she didn't go through with it. because that's not something she could have gotten from Aang. That's not something she would have gotten from anyone else. No one else was willing to hold that space for her for wanting that revenge, even if she wasn't able to go through with it. So regardless of whether she would have done it if circumstances had changed, the fact that Zuko is willing to hold that space for her was kind of healing for her relationship with him.
Maybe also the fact that she was able to prove to herself her own integrity by not killing that guy.
Yanra, yeah.
Right.
Was that the point where the Microsoft meter went 0 and the task was complete?
For forgiveness for Zuko, yeah.
No, for Katara and 24 days, 4 minutes. Right? I think Microsoft found itself there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
But
We'll take it.
I do think that needed to happen also for Zuko's story arc, right? To really like this, what does being good mean? What does like help and support and bringing people together? And so for that story arc, that was really powerful, I think, for bringing the communities and that like communal and tribal healing that helps the show come to a culmination.
What does it feel like to hold on to something and have that contribute to your character, but also be able to let go of something at the same time?
Yeah.
Damn it. This fucking show.
So good.
Because we even see it at the very finale where they're fighting, Zuko and Katara are fighting Azula. Like Azula goes to lightning blast Katara and Zuko goes to protect her. Like it's very much of that bond has now been forged, which I think is a big crux of what was that Zutara shipping that people would do. It's like, hey, he was willing to sacrifice himself to try and deflect the lightning blast because Katara finally trusted him. And I think that was a well-earned rebuild of trust.
Yeah. And it was a kind of the physical to the mental, I guess, clasp at the end there, right? It was
a physical manifestation of what had been done mentally.
Yeah, you're willing to put your life on the line.
Yep.
Yeah. And God damn it.
I know.
So
This series is crazy, so good, and the writing is fantastic.
Every time we talk about it, I'm like, well, I guess I could do a 20th rewatch. It's
and
frustrating.
every time
in the
it's
best
a new
way.
appreciation.
It
like,
is.
Yeah,
It
I
is.
agree.
I am ultra grateful for the two of you to be able to have these conversations.
Likewise, friends. Truly.
Yeah, it's nice.
Truly.
With your lavender nips over there, Ty. Well, that was off camera and off recording.
Yes.
That has no context. Oh, it's better that way.
It is better that way.
We're gonna leave
Not
you
even need to
hanging.
explain.
No need to explain. Have we hit all the things?
We've hit all the things. We've done it.
Yeah.
Leia, can you tell our sweet Lodians where to find you if you want to share some content and
Oh, oui.
all the things?
Yes. You can find me on Instagram at warmly.drleia, Leia, as well as Changewell Psych material on Instagram. And you Google me, you'll see me. Coming soon, we are going to also have a YouTube channel called Learn Well, which is going to have free content for mental health and psychological concepts to help you get through the day. So please stay tuned and follow, and we'll post all of that content.
Please go there. Do not come here for psychology or wellness. We are not going to provide that.
I did not say this is not medical advice.
After
after
you listen to this, go there. You're going to need it.
Yes.
Yes. And will that be in the session notes or wait,
Session notes. If we decide show notes are a thing,
We're still
we'll
figuring
do.
that.
Sure.
We'll plug it in.
Yeah,
we're not sure about our.
I said
our-
We
session.
haven't really done a lot of show notes.
We don't
but
know.
for you,
Just kidding.
We might.
we will.
We might.
Cut
No,
that.
I want to commit
that.
He's committing.
because I'm the one that
Oh.
does it.
Oh, that's
so
fair.
I'm going to commit.
That's fair.
The glass is raised.
This glass we've been holding this glass for 3 weeks straight right now. And I am proud of all of us. One arm for all of us. They're all so strong. Cheersingtons.
Cheersingtons. Wink.
May we bend this whiskey into our hearts, and may we bend our hearts into the foul bird of the lake.
And maybe we be able to liver bend.
To liver bending.
Liver bending.
Love you guys. Bye.
She said bye
Bottoms
again.
up.
She said bye again. She's still here.
We did it.